Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Today is the day. So we have a new thing today. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what are we going to learn from the upcoming videos inshallah, or the upcoming tutorials, if you may say so. So here is the thing. There is a lot of concepts that we are gonna cover, but I just didn't want to do it like any other regular YouTube tutorial out there. So because a lot of people just go and explain concept by concept without using them actually on a real big project. So here is the thing. Most of these people like to, for example, use some little examples or some little scenarios. They call it hands-on approach, but it's not that hands-on really if you really think about it. So for example, in order for him to teach OOP or object-oriented programming, and this is how I learned, he, for example, makes some classes of a person. For example, he gives it a name, a birth date, and etc, and he tries to change those, you know, the ideal thing. So that's most of people do, but I didn't want to do this or do that in this tutorial or this video series or in this course. So the thing that I came up about is this big project that we are gonna do. I already covered that before, and this is what we are going to learn. So here is my approach. So the best actually way to understand and learn a concept is to use it as a solution for a problem. For example, now we have a big problem now. Okay, so think about it. We have the Dojo system manager. This is what we are gonna build. We are gonna break it down into little small problems and pieces that we can solve. Okay, so now we have sub problems, or let's just call them problems. So each problem here has a solution. And what am I gonna introduce you here? I'm gonna introduce you each concept as a solution for that problem. So it helps me in another way if you think about it. I don't have to explain it that much because you already gonna see what it does. So it actually gonna look stupid for you to see me explain it, because you are gonna see it play and that sort of thing. So for example, we are going to do, okay, so let's just read something here. We're going to practice it, and it's going to say one solution, and that's the implemented solution for a problem are facing. Okay, that we have already talked about. So you might say that I need to understand it to know where to implement it. I agree, and that's my job here. Okay, so here I just wrote this notes for myself, but it's nice to go through them again. So my job here is to help you, for example, get into this mood of using something as a solution for a problem. And it's actually the other way around if you are working on a project alone and you don't know, because you don't already know the solution to look for its problem. You have a problem and you need to look for a solution. And the approach I have used here, you can use the same thing and you can be in the same position. For example, if you have a technology that you want to learn and practice, so you need to find where does that technology play. Okay, so you need to find its bigger problem, and you need to implement it as a solution for that problem that you're gonna find. But the whole idea or the whole goal that you have is to practice that thing of yours. So it's not actually about the problem here, it's about the thing that you want to learn, and it's actually probably closer to what we are gonna do in here. So we are gonna build a Dojo system manager using Python, PyQt 5, MySQL, and all these sort of things. But our objective here, it's not the project itself, it's what we are gonna learn on the way of building it. And that's what I want you to focus on, the method or the way, because let's be honest, each thing and each project you are gonna do, there isn't a tutorial for it, and there isn't actually that much time for you to spend on these tutorials, even if they exist. So bear with me here, and a lot of things that you're gonna do all the way is just googling stuff using your favorite search engine to look stuff up on the internet, or reading a PDF guide for something like the reportlab. I actually have read like half of the book or more than half of it just to understand how to implement it in my project. And this is reportlab. We are gonna use that in this project as well, so you have that to go with. So implement them, just make sure to pick up your own way of figuring stuff out. So because there isn't a tutorial for every problem out there. Okay, that's I have already covered. So we are going to use Python 3, PyQt 5, MySQL, modules and libraries. Okay, so here are the modules and libraries that we are going to use. We are going to use Subprocess. Okay, we are going to use the time, the sys module, the XLSX writer. This is for writing Excel files. Reportlab is for making PDF files from Python. That's a good one, by the way. We're gonna cover some concepts that students find easy to understand but hard to implement in a big real project. And this stuff I have actually struggled with. This stuff: packages, namespaces, object-oriented programming, inheritance, composition, abstraction. You already understand this stuff by now probably, but you don't know how to implement it in a big real project, or just a normal project, that sort of thing. So we're going to try to cover some of the confusing questions for people just starting their first project for a client or their own. So like how to handle every error that can be caused by the user. And this is actually one of the confusing parts that I have faced. So you are building something that actually works, but what if the user inputs in the wrong number or the wrong characters or the wrong data type, and that sort of thing. So how can I deal with long Python project files? So you don't actually, that's your answer. Okay, so here if you look up most of the projects out there in PyQt 5, so there is actually people who actually build PyQt 5 projects, and there are on Udemy, YouTube, you can look that up. But almost all of them actually, the ones actually that went ahead and implemented these sort of things, they didn't use object-oriented programming or packages to split their code. So we are gonna go through that and show you how can you deal with long files, which your answer to that is you don't actually, you just split the projects and make classes and inheritance and all of those stuff. So you're gonna learn how to do that. So can I generate PDF files from my projects? Yes, you can. So how can I test a Gui application? We are gonna do some testing at the end of the project, I guess, because I still didn't do that myself. Okay, so I actually tested it manually. Everything I did, I tested it on the spot. So this testing idea, I didn't actually like it at the time that I was doing this project, but now I do. But I'm gonna cover that at the end of the project. And this is not actually ideal, because testing you need when you start with the project, but because that's the best thing to do. But because actually I intend to target from beginners to intermediate developers, I'm not gonna cover testing here. So how can I automate these tests? Okay, so that's another thing. So how can I know where did my project fail if an error actually does happen, and how can I catch it and know what it is? Okay, that's a good question, by the way, because for example, sometimes when you build such a big project, you don't know and it just fails without you realizing where and why. That's a big problem, you need to figure that out. But this one actually we are gonna cover from the beginning, so you know how the project actually is gonna fail. So you know how to handle errors, and you are gonna love them by the end of this course. The most thing that actually developers love, or programmers or hackers love, is errors, because you get taught a new thing just by messing something up. So when creating a big application, how can I make sure that my data is up to date with the latest changes I have compiled? Okay, I have committed to the database, so that I don't have to restart the whole application. This is a more generic question, which is actually here. So here, this question is for people who actually have built some, for example, some application before, but in the time they commit something to their database, they have to restart it. So that's actually stupid, because if you use OOP and you know what you're doing, you don't actually have to do that, which is actually easy. I'm just bringing that up, and actually I don't know if someone does that, but because I thought of it, someone might. Okay, so what does from module import all mean, and how can I control what does the asterisk and stands for? Okay, so this we are gonna go through. We are gonna cover probably how Python imports modules, and what does the asterisk mean, and how can we change what asterisks mean, because this asterisk actually imports everything from a module, by the way. And how can you control what everything stands for here? So you can control that using the under all method. For example, you can say, for example, import only my object, for example, and that sort of thing. But we are gonna cover this later. You don't have to worry about it now. And let's go and move on. What does from body? Okay, in a system management application, how can I keep track of what's been done on the app and who did some action on it? Okay, so this is actually something like the syslog that we have on Linux. So you can log every action that's been done on your application. So you will need users to link that action to. So that's the right phrase. So we will have to create some users in our database. That's a user table, by the way, and a history table, so you can link that, another table to link those two, and you're gonna understand that by then. So after finishing the whole application thing, how can I make sure that the client's data isn't lost after his computer broke down, so, or something like that. So I need to break data up, I need to back data up, how often though, and how can I make much okay, so this here is for the backup thing. So if our computer broke down, how can we back up our stuff, and how can I know how much resources it needs to do such operation? Okay, so here actually begs the question actually begs itself here. So I actually have wondered about this when I just got started. I don't know if you think about this or not, but how do you actually know what kind of resources does a computer has to have in order to run your project? Have you ever thought about that? I have. So I took a look at it, but not that deep look, so I need to still make some research about that, and we are gonna cover that by the end of this course. So you actually have to know what does a computer have to have as resources to run your project, unless otherwise your project is useless. So you have no use for it if it's not going to work on your machine. So how to make sure that the app you have built can run? Okay, we're gonna certain computer, and what are our apps hardware requirements? Note, you are gonna use Vim Emacs from the time. Okay, so I'm actually learning Emacs at this time. So I'm using Vim, but later on this course I might use Emacs because I'm learning that, and I think you should, because I'm learning Emacs for another reason. So I'm gonna use this project to practice that. So I'm practicing Vim too, but Vim is just a text editor. Emacs is another whole thing, and that's why I'm learning it. So just a heads up kind of thing. So it's not actually, I don't think it's gonna be a problem, because all the things that I'm gonna be doing you are gonna see, but I just thought you might know. So last note, we are going to use Vim Emacs from time to time in the middle of it, so just until you get used to them. Eventually that's what we are going to go with and keep using those. So make sure you build a habit of using Vim and Emacs too, or as well. So in the beginning, I think I'm gonna use VS Code. I just downloaded it a few weeks back. It's actually pretty tempting to use VS Code because it's easy and it has nice coloring and all those kind of stuff. So this is all I got for this video. Thank you very much for your attention. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.